Welcome to episode 1, Cracking the ASML Code, a podcast by the Dutch investors. Imagine a company so essential to the world's biggest tech giants, and perhaps the global economy itself, would struggle to function without it. That is ASML. This isn't just any company that supports tech giants, it's the backbone of modern technology. If ASML were to disappear today, the impact would be dramatic, with ripples across industries worldwide. In today's episode, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of semiconductors to uncover the secrets and mechanics behind this one-of-a-kind company, ASML. Let's get started. ASML stock took a sharp dive. It dropped nearly 20% right after they reported their Q3 results. Why such a big reaction, you might be wondering? Well, it mainly boils down to two things: a more cautious outlook from the company and a smaller order book than investors had expected. So let's break this down a bit further. The semiconductor industry, where ASML is a key player, goes through cycles. It goes up and it goes down. It has periods of high demand and growth, followed by slower phases where demand can cool off. And if there's one thing investors don't like, it's uncertainty. So investors took some chips off the table. But that's not all I want to talk to you about in today's episode. We, the Dutch investors, stand for long-term investing, and while these things do matter, especially in the short term, the quality of the company, the competitive advantage, and the price you pay are much more important in the long run. So let's take a step back and look at some of the fundamentals of ASML and why we believe ASML is such a high-quality company according to our research. So I would assume most of you listening kinda know what ASML is and does. Well, sort of, I guess. Because who really knows? I mean, even the former CEO recently said that he doesn't really know all the ins and outs anymore of the machine and the company. So, who are we to tell you? But there are a few things we can tell you about. Or this episode would make no sense. Anyway, if you're unfamiliar with ASML, let me give you the quickest and most simplified version. ASML is the global leader in lithography systems, owning over 90% of the market. Yeah, you heard that right. 90%. What is lithography, you might be wondering? Simply put, it's a process that helps create complex patterns on silicon wafers. It's a critical step in making computer chips, for example. ASML basically makes the massive bus-sized machine needed to make chips. ASML's customers are some of the biggest names in the chip industry, and you might know them: TSMC, Samsung, Intel, and SK Hynix. And without ASML, all these companies wouldn't be able to make these advanced chips we use in everything from our smartphones and laptops today. ASML basically builds two types of lithography machines. The first one is DUV, or Deep Ultraviolet machines. These are used to create the less advanced chips, such as those found in everyday electronics like household appliances, basic smartphones, and older model cars. I mean, these chips don't require the highest level of processing power, but are kinda essential for many standard devices. Then we have EUV, Extreme Ultraviolet machines. And these machines can create the world's most advanced chips down to a size as tiny as 2 to 3 nanometers, or a billionth of a meter. To put this in perspective, because, Who can really grasp that? It is roughly 50,000 times smaller than the width of a human hair. Yeah, I know, let that sink in for a second. ASML's lithography machines use laser pulses to vaporize tin into plasma, and that is 100 times hotter than the sun's surface. This process repeats 50,000 times per second to create tiny transistor patterns on silicon wafers. Think of ASML's machine as super precise laser printers that draw incredibly tiny circuits on silicon chips, like creating a detailed map on a microscopic level. Each machine costs around $300 million, and they need 3 jumbo jets to transport the entire machine to a customer. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. ASML spent about 30 years developing EUV technology, and they have completely cornered the market. Competitors like Nikon or Canon tried to develop a similar system, but they just couldn't match ASML's technology and ultimately stopped trying. Even in DUV technology, which is less complex, ASML dominates with around 80% of market share. To put ASML's lead into perspective, consider this. China purchased a DUV system and tried to reverse engineer it at a major university. And let me tell you, China is extremely good at copying stuff, especially technology. But even with all the parts right in front of them, they couldn't replicate the machine's function. And adding to their advancements, ASML has already installed their first high-NA EUV machine, which pushes the boundaries even further. This system can print transistors that are about 1.7 times smaller and achieve nearly 3 times the density compared to their earlier EUV machines. And if you think that's impressive, they're already developing the next generation called Hyper-NA. I mean, they just don't stop innovating, and it's very impressive. Alright, so we've talked about the stock price, the cyclicality in the semiconductor industry, and the impressive lead ASML has. But, nothing lasts forever. A company like this must have a moat to protect itself from competition, and we believe they kinda do. First of all, ASML holds over 16,000 patents, making it incredibly difficult to just copy or recreate something. Just think of the China example, since China isn't really concerned with patents at all. Furthermore, its machines are tailored to fit each client's needs and come down with dedicated support and maintenance, which keeps them running smoothly and minimizes downtime. This deep customization and support means switching from ASML to another provider would be a major costly change for clients, requiring an overhaul of their operations, so that's very unlikely. One key factor in ASML's success is its strong specialized supplier network. ASML works with over 5,000 suppliers, mainly in the Netherlands and Germany, who create highly specific parts that fit perfectly into ASML's machines. Some suppliers like Cymer, Trumpf, and Carl Zeiss are even partly owned by ASML, producing components exclusively for them. For instance, Trumpf makes a CO2 laser for ASML that's made up of over 450,000 parts. I mean, this level of detail and integration is nearly impossible for competitors to match, making it a very competitive advantage. So, what's the takeaway in all of this? What should we, as investors, learn from ASML's story? Well, I think it comes down to 3 things. First of all, when investing in semiconductor stocks, you have to understand the market cycles. The chip industry goes up and it goes down. And sometimes these companies look cheap when the margins and profits are sky high, but once the cyclicality and the market turns, the companies can look very expensive. And while there are ups and downs in demand, a cautious forecast doesn't mean it's a bad long-term investment. Focus on the big picture. The second is a competitive edge or a competitive advantage. It matters. ASML's tech lead, strong patents, and a unique partnership with suppliers make it very hard for others to catch up. This protects their business from competition. However, I would like to emphasize that any moat can be broken, even a fortress like ASML today. And the last takeaway is that innovation also matters. ASML, or any tech company or semiconductor company for that matter, has to invest in advancing its technology. Especially semiconductor companies. It is crucial for staying ahead, or perhaps even more important, not falling behind, like Intel is today. In today's tech world, innovation helps secure and keep an edge. And that wraps up today's episode. I hope you found our, not so deep dive into ASML as fascinating as we did. If you're interested in getting more insights like this and want to save time on research so you can focus on what matters most, head on over to thedutchinvestors.com. Our members receive a new, in-depth fundamental analysis every single Friday, providing you with everything you need to make informed investment decisions without the hours of digging through the data yourself. Available in audio, on the go, or just read it whenever you want. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.